So for today's video I had intended on covering this article here, where this woman had stabbed that man down there, and she took a selfie of it, but upon reading into it further I realised that it was entirely in self-defence, where he was choking the living knife out of her and beating her into the ground, and the knife was the necessary equaliser. Probably not the smartest thing to do to take a selfie, but I guess when you're proud of something like that, I guess it makes some sense. Instead though, we're going to cover something that I had... Who the fuck let a firework outside my sub? Anyway, instead we are going to cover this. Something which I had spoken with Irate Bear on his stream yesterday morning, while I was busy rendering yesterday's video, where 5 people have been arrested, although it's been updated to now 6 people have been arrested, 6 men no less, for a bonfire. Now, as many people know, on the 5th of November we have fireworks, which I think you just heard, on the 6th. But we also have a bonfire. Tradition dictates we have what we call a guy, typically some clothed straw something effigy of Guy Fawkes, even though he wasn't the one that started it. He's just the most memorable, and we burn him. The whole remember the 5th of November. Yeah, got to love tradition. This year though, 6 people burnt, and this is incredible poor taste, an effigy of the Grenfell Tower. For those that do not know, Grenfell Tower is one of those big massive blocks of flats in London that caught fire last year because of a cladding that was used as a means to cut corners and save money. However, this particular cladding was highly combustible, so when the fire started, it spread very quickly and a lot of people were hurt. Many died, many more were hurt. And then there were those who abused it, milked it, and lied. Let's preface them with lied to milk it, to the point where many received, those that lied that is, compensation, some of whom have been prosecuted, some of whom will be sentenced later this year, and rightly so. You take away from real victims of something truly, truly terrible, you greedy, greedy shits. Now these 6 people burnt this effigy of Grenfell Tower, and even made pictures of people who were in the tower as it went up in smoke, all of whom on this particular effigy were brown, which sparked the inevitable conversation about whether or not it was racist or not, or just accurate, seeing as though the majority of the tenants in that building may have been brown. I don't actually know, so let's go with an assumption that should be discarded. Others will argue because the 6 men in question are all white, it was racially motivated. I don't really believe it was racially motivated. I think it was a really weak attempt at making a joke. Not that it is in any way a good idea to video record that and upload it to any site, knowing the consequences of that will be you getting arrested for undoubtedly what could be considered to be a hate crime. Now, I have made my views on hate crimes quite clear. It's bullshit. It's bullshit because of how it is implemented, and it is all down to perceived hate, racism, misogyny, etc. Now, the article we're going to use to address all of this comes from the BBC. A house linked to a, quote, offensive video showing a model of Grenfell Tower being burned on a bonfire has been searched by police. 6 men, 2 aged 49, 2 aged 19, and the others 46 and 55, were arrested on suspicion of a public order offence after handing themselves in. For those that don't know, a public order offence is threatening, abusive or insulting behaviour in a public place. Section 8 of the Criminal Justice Act of 1994 makes it an offence for any person in a public place to use threatening, abusive, insulting words or behaviour with the intention to cause a breach of the peace. Which actually surprises me that this was the one that they got charged with, since there are a couple of others they could have gone with, but maybe this is the safest one to get a conviction with. A video shared on social media shows a cardboard model of the tower being set alight by a laughing crowd. Prime Minister Theresa May has called the video utterly unacceptable, while she does have to be seen to be proactive in calling out this kind of behaviour, since she was probably one of the last people to go and see the victims of the Grenfell Tower fire. Hell, I'm sure I would have gotten there before her, and I live nowhere near it. I literally could have crawled there on my stomach and gotten there before her, and she lives down the road. The footage shows a large model bearing a Grenfell Tower sign, complete with paper figures at the windows being set on fire. I remember listening to Radio 2 at work yesterday, or 2 days ago at time of release, and when they were covering the news at 6 o'clock in the evening, someone being interviewed was saying how they felt it was absolutely 100% racist, and the parts they latched onto to confirm racism was that while most of the effigies, the people in this effigy of Grenfell Tower, were brown, the racist part was that one of them was wearing a hijab, which she had deemed to be the worst part of it all. Hijabs are not a racial thing. The recent Israeli video of, I believe, a white model ripping off a hijab is proof of that. And the fact that we have seen some people recently in the news, Sinead O'Connor, a former singer for a one-hit wonder song and junkie, turned to the church and now to the mosque, has given up her life as a devout Christian or Catholic. I don't know the difference. To become a Muslim, where she has railed on white people for being filthy, dirty, doesn't matter. Hijabs are not exclusive to one race, and Islam is not a race. Sinead O'Connor is proof of that, surely. Laughter can be heard off camera as the effigy is set alight, with onlookers shouting, help me, and jump out of the window. As the blaze takes hold, a voice can be heard to say, all the little ninjas, getting it at the minute. Are you sure they said ninjas? Based on the fact that some of the people in that are brown, I can safely assume the word ninja could be replaced with Nigel, Niger perhaps, but with an additional G, or ginger, rearranged. At the end of the clip, a person can be heard saying, that's what happens when they don't pay their rent. Whew, shit. Okay, I can't defend that. There is a growing trend, one that is widely recognised, that people living in those types of buildings live on state welfare. I am not for 1 second going to rail on any particular reason for why they are. It is just a reality. They are, those blocks of flats, considered affordable housing. It's just a shame the building company that did it cut corners, which cost many people their homes and their lives. There was a huge furore around the rehousing of the people involved because it took so long, with Jeremy Corbyn being very good on human rights, and I always give him credit for that, suggesting taking homes away from those that don't use them in London, the privately owned homes, and giving them, so basically re-seizing privately owned property, and giving them to those that needed homes, which I got, but at the same time, I did not support it. I know a number of those people would have wanted to remain in that area, but as far as affordable housing goes, I am certain many of them had to accept homes elsewhere in the country, which may have afforded them better opportunities for employment and to get themselves into a better situation. That said, and to get back on topic with this particular effigy, this is one of the most out-of-taste, terrible things you could do. You would have gotten away for it, by the way, not only if it were not for the meddling kids, but had you not been so naive or thick as to record it and post it onto social media. This is a big cry for attention, and one where you have to kick people to make yourselves laugh. And for that, all of you have been publicly faced, named and shamed, which I think under the circumstances, I understand. Whether I support it or not, I don't really care. Police searched a house in South Norwood, taking away 2 clear plastic bags, which appear to contain gaffer tape and white tags. Well, it's good that they at least did some thorough searching. Rukayet Mamadou, a survivor of the fire, called the video the, quotes, climax of intolerance of the system and society. She told the Victoria Derbyshire programme, it's chilling, it's cold-blooded. I feel so bad, let alone people who lost relatives. This should be brought to justice. I would love to know what your parameters for justice are, by the way, because I'm sure some will say they should deserve a custodial term for burning an effigy for making a crap joke. If you're going to give them anything, give them a fine. Be consistent in that regard, since the last time someone did something with any context where it didn't matter anyway, although I'm not sure how they could spin this so that context matters. That person got £800 as a fine, and dragged through the mud for 2 years. If it's not apparent, I am trying to be somewhat consistent in my view. Much like Dankula's situation, I do want to understand the context for this. And of course it should matter. I do not believe this woman, Rukayet Mamadou, when she says this should be brought to justice, wants them to get a fine and consider it justice. I believe she would want them to get prison for it, which would be a terrible thing to do. They're idiots, yes. Worthy of custodial terms, no. Is this hate speech? No. Stupid? Yes. Should they be punished for it? Personally, I don't believe they should, but that's because I don't generally take much interest in that particular area. I don't care for it. However, A public order offence implies they did this somewhere where a fire may not have been permitted. They can be punished for that. So hopefully they get life in prison to appease you and all the victims of the Grenfell Tower fire. Now, before I finish, yesterday I said I was going to do a midterm election stream. Didn't do it because I had to get up. We did not do this because I had to get up at 6 AM for work this morning. So instead we're going to do it tonight. It is linked below. Prime Minister's questions should be on today. If it is, I'll be covering that tomorrow on the Cthulhukin and Friends show. So I hope you all have a lovely day. I also hope you get the results you always wanted from this midterm election. And thank you all for listening.